Already getting there. All right, I see Brent's on here, so.
I'm gonna mute everybody real quick and unmute you guys. So give me 1 second, just so it's complete. I think it's kind of quiet now, so you guys go ahead.
If it does get kind of loud, John will go ahead and unmute everybody. And then if you want to talk, if you go down to the bottom of your screen right now and click on participants, a little box should pop up on your right. And then at the bottom of all the names, there's a button that says raise hand. If you can hit that raise hand button, that will let John know to unmute you, and then you can talk. And then later on at the end, we'll unmute it for everybody, because people that are just calling in, they're not going to be able to do the raise hand button. Obviously, they're on there just calling in. So if we do start getting a lot of background noise, he'll go ahead and mute everybody. But yeah, go to the bottom, click participants, go to the right, at the bottom of there, click raise hand. You can also go to the bottom of the screen and click the chat button, and you can type stuff in there if you want to type anything to anybody, to everybody or to one person. You can do that over on the right too. John, did you go ahead and get it started recording?
Yes, it is recording.
Okay. Well, we've got Brent Hall on here. He is currently a magistrate. He is opposed this election. So I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but Tressie Prophet Cabell is running against him this year. I don't know if you guys have been in front of Brent. I know I have. I know John has.
I have.
The good thing we've seen about Brent is that he's always fair to everybody, listens to both sides, and rules fairly. So we never want a magistrate that's always on the tenant side, and we also don't want a magistrate that's always on the landlord side. Everybody should be fair to both sides and rule fairly. So we have found that in Brent for sure. So we reached out to Brent to ask him to give us an update on what was going to happen when the courts reopened on Monday. So Brent, you can jump in and take over.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm going to go over what you guys are going to see starting on Monday, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the magistrate is a little bit confusing. You're seeing, I know everybody's seeing a magistrate signs up out there, and nobody knows who's running against who, what's going on. So I'm going to explain that process a little bit to you. And then if anybody has any questions about evictions, shoot them my way. If I can answer them, I'll be glad to today. If I don't know the answer, I'm not a bull crapper. I'll look it up and get back to y'all at the next meeting and tell y'all the right answers, okay? So I hope everybody's okay with that. So the court, this is going to be bad news for you guys. You're not going to be happy with me, but don't shoot the messenger. I checked with our head magistrate, which is relaying from the circuit judges. Our eviction hearings are going to start the first week of June. And the reason they said they're going to do that is because the clerk's office is just now getting fully staffed and back up this week. So they're going to start setting the hearings this week. And they got to send out notices, and they have to, some of them haven't been served yet, because the ones that were filed right when this hit, they haven't even been served yet. So what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and serve those this week, send out notices, and we're going to start actual hearings up the first week of June. Now, with that being said, if I was a landlord, I would go and start file. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I would go ahead and start filing these, because there is going to be a backlog. And if you want to be at the top of the list to get these people out, I would recommend getting them set immediately. You know, so do that. Now, the changes you're going to see at the court is they're saying that they aren't going to let anybody in the building, is my understanding, without a mask on. And they're only going to keep the distancing down, they're only going to let the litigants in. So don't bring your cousin, your sister, your grandma, everybody with you that some people bring. They're just going to let the people that are actually have court business. So the landlord and then the family, the person you're evicting isn't going to be able to bring their 20 family members anymore for a while. They're only going to be able to bring their people, them, in the door. They're going to put sneeze masks or sneeze shields up, they tell me. which what that is, it's going to be like the clerk's office. All the magistrate desks. I don't think I'm going to like it, but there's going to be a plexiglass piece up in front of all the magistrates. And they're talking about maybe doing something like for the litigants as well, but I don't know that yet. So you might feel like you're in a cage when you come. They might put plexiglass around you. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that either. The front door is going to have a temperature machine or a thermometer-like thing. It's infrared. When you all walk through the front door, it's not anything they put in your mouth or up your butt or whatever that you do. It's infrared. They shoot you. They can tell if you have a temperature. If you have any temperature, they're not going to let you in the building. I guess we'll have to continue your case or something of that nature. I don't know what they're going to do. They said they aren't providing masks, which doesn't make any sense, because what if the tenant comes and doesn't have a mask on? I don't want to continue your case and let them stay there. So I'm going to have to look into what they're going to do for people who don't bring masks. And I haven't really got an answer on that yet. That's the gist of the changes. I think they're going to mark off in the lobby, like seating, so you're like 6 feet apart, like on tape on the benches, so nobody sits too close to you. That's all the changes I really know of at the courthouse right now. Did y'all have any questions about any of that?
So Brett, I assume that witnesses, obviously, if they bring witnesses or I bring witnesses, obviously those can be.
Yeah, I think that's considered a litigant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't been there very much recently either. They haven't been letting the magistrates even in the building. They deactivated all the magistrates' cards so we couldn't go in there and spread germs. So I've talked to the head magistrate and a couple of the circuit judges, but I haven't really been there and know exactly what's going on. Jennifer asked me to do this the other day, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't have any answers for her. So I told her to put it off until I could get a little bit of answers for you all. So did anybody else have another question?
Will they let us in to run our background checks on people in the clerk's office?
Well, yeah, you're going to be allowed to come in and file.
Well, no, I'm not saying if we're filing. I'm saying if we've got a new tenant that applies and we want to come and check those magistrate computer records to see if they've ever been evicted or have a criminal background.
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I would assume if they're going to let people to the clerk's office to file, I don't see why they wouldn't let, as long as it wasn't a bunch of people, I would assume one at a time they'd allow.
I'll just share this, and guys, please raise your hand if you want me to unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. But one of the members, Brett, that made a suggestion. Can you hear me? If there is a requirement for masks, can that be sent out or included on the eviction form, since it's obviously important to the case?
I'll suggest that. I'll call today and see if they can do that. That's a good idea. I'd agree with you on that.
Hold on one second. We got a question from Tori. I see Al waving, so let me unmute him.
And also,
go ahead, Al.
On here, if you guys have any concerns or tell me what you got, some of the magistrates are doing that y'all don't like, or what's going on, please tell me your concerns, and I'll take it to them. And I won't say anybody's name or anything, but if I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but if there's something, or if there's an appeal, if you guys appeal and the magistrates are getting something wrong, they don't tell us what happens on the appeal. Once we get done with you guys, I have no idea what happens to your cases. So if the magistrates are doing something wrong or illegal and they're overturning it upstairs, please let me know so we can correct that, and I can talk to the other magistrates about it as well. Okay.
So one of the members also mentioned on the mask thing, and Al, I'll let you go next. You're unmuted. If a tenant shows up without a mask, and if they know that they're supposed to have one, should that not just be considered a no-show for that party?
Like I said, they haven't really. I'm not sure they've realized all this. I think they're going to have to let the litigants in. I don't know what what the answer is, because I mean, there is a mass shortage. So I don't know what we're going to have to do, but we're going to have to let them in somehow.
Or maybe the landlords just bring some extras just in case.
Hey, that's okay with me. If you guys want to bring a couple extra and say, hey, I got one.
Good idea.
All right.
So I think Al had you had a question as well?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Magistrate Hall, my name is Al Sines. I'm a landlord and a retired attorney. Here's what I see happening from the defendants in a wrongful. They're going to go in there and they're not going to have masks and they're not going to let them in the building, and there's going to be a no-show, and the magistrates are going to continue it because it's a no-show. The magistrate clerk's office needs to send out a notice with the summons and the documents with big letters so people don't have to put their glasses on, that you must bring a mask. If you don't and you're denied access to the building, default will be taken against you.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what John was mentioning a minute ago.
They're going to use this as a weapon against the landlord. Oh, gee, I didn't know. I didn't have the money for a mask. You cannot take judgment against me, and that's not right.
Okay, I agree with you totally. And to your account and John both mentioned that, I'm going to call the clerk's office and talk to you about that tomorrow. See if we can put some kind of notice in with it.
It has to go out that if you don't bring a mask and you can't get in, judgment will be taken against you. It's
Okay.
your obligation to bring a mask and to come in. If they want to wrap a bandana around their head or some kind of a scarf or something, it doesn't matter. Come in there all wrapped up so that justice will be administered.
Okay, I definitely agree with you. And that, I just wrote that down. I got a notepad here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to, any of y'all's concerns, I'm going to take them to the circuit judges and the head magistrate, and we're going to try to work these out for you. That's why I want to take any problems y'all foresee.
Who's the chief magistrate and who's the chief judge?
Okay, our chief magistrate right now is Tracy Carper Strickland, Kent Carper's daughter.
Okay.
And she doesn't appear for y'all because she only does juvenile stuff.
Yeah.
So y'all never see her. And then the head judge right now is Charlie King.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Charlie's pretty good guy. I think he'll talk to you if you have any serious.
Charlie's one of the brightest judges in the circuit here. He's been around a long time. I went to school with him. He's just really, really smart. So
I like Charlie.
I have one of the tenants have a question, and before we move on, I did want to ask one thing related to this, since it's the mask. And is there a concept for, given the importance of evictions and even in state code about having 10 days to hear our case, and there's a lot of requirements on timing, and given the uncertainty with the code, is there a concept of virtual, just like they do jail, remote court appearances? Is there a concept where you guys can consider or think about a virtual, where tenant can show up virtually, whether it be like a Zoom? It doesn't have to be Zoom, obviously, but some type of medium.
In the order that came out, it says that we can have those kind of hearings, kind of a Skype hearing or a Zoom like we're doing today. The only problem I foresee is that these tenants are going to tell you all, that they don't have access to Zoom, or they don't have phones, or I think they're going to these kinds of, if I try to set those kind of hearings, I think they're going to use those kinds of excuses not to have them.
Would you allow a tenant to call into it if he says, hey, look, I'm sick, because I imagine that's the next one. Oh, I got a temperature, I can't even come there. Yeah. And they call in and defer. Is there a concept that the next response is?
I believe the order I read today that said we could have telephonic hearings.
Excellent.
So I don't see foresee a problem with that if that was okay with all the parties.
But they would have to agree to that to be able to call in.
I think what the order says that the parties would have to agree to.
Okay.
I'll have to read the order again, and it's on Kanawha County's Facebook page, the actual counties, the order. So when y'all get off here, you can look on that order, and there's an order that came out last week that's on Joanna Tabbitt's that's more in depth about it.
Excellent.
So if y'all want to look at those orders when you get off here.
Just one suggestion, and thank you for the input on that. Rob Alter raised his hand first. Go ahead, Rob, with your question.
Yes, we're out of the Eastern Panhandle in West Virginia, so I just wanted to ask the magistrate if all these rules that he's talking about, changes and so forth, does that apply statewide, or is that only Greater Charleston area?
Now, each circuit, the judges are dealing with this the way they want to run it. So
Okay.
this is how our judges have decided to do things. Your circuit judges may do things totally different. Now, there's a couple counties, I think over in the Eastern Panhandle, that they're calling them red counties or something like that, or hot spots or whatever. And
Yeah.
they're real strict. They're not even, I'm not sure they're coming back with evictions yet even. I mean, you'll have to check with the circuit judges or the courts in your county. But yeah, some of those counties, they're being real strict still.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So anything I'm telling you here, this is what our circuit judges are telling us. So I can't really speak for anybody else.
Angela Leedy, you had your hand next if you want to ask your question.
I actually have two now because I lost the big screen on the Zoom and I don't know how to get that back. Anybody know how to get the big screen back?
I think it's
Gallery view on the top right-hand corner. There's like pictures of squares.
Yeah, I'm clicking the big squares, but it's only just little pictures of everybody. I can't.
Yeah, if you click that little thing with a bunch of little squares and it'll say gallery view, you can change it to speaker view.
Yeah, I'm clicking it. Nothing's happening, but it says thumbnail video or something. I don't know. Anyway, my real question is, and I don't want to waste anybody's time because I'm very, very new to West Virginia regulations. I'm very confused with this magistrate and judge positions. And I come from New Jersey where
Sure.
we don't have that. It's 3 months before you can even think about evicting someone, and you go to a judge. And so if someone has the time outside of this meeting, because I don't want to hold up.
Well, I'll hit it real quick for you. In West Virginia, so the judges aren't so busy. The true circuit judges, that's the bigger judges. Since they're so busy, they hired people called magistrates, and the magistrates are supposed to be the people's court. They are not necessarily attorneys. Some are attorneys, and they're supposed to be the people's court for the people. And we try to just do our best and do what we want, what we can.
So when I go, I have to go, I guess, Monday and start a filing
Yes.
process of filing it for eviction. I go to the magistrate's office.
You go to the magistrate clerk's office. It's in the same.
Office.
So what county are you in?
Hancock.
Oh,
I live in Ohio, but the house is in Hancock.
yeah, you'll go to that county's magistrate clerk's office, and they have a form. It's as simple as that. It's real easy to fill out. You'll just handwrite it in.
Do I need social security numbers?
What's that?
I'm not sure about this, but do I need social security numbers to do the eviction?
Not to do the eviction, but to collect on any judgments, it would be very helpful. I would highly recommend anytime you take in a client to get their social security number, or not a client, but a renter, get the social security numbers, because when you go to garnish their wages, a lot of employers won't garnish their wages unless you can verify by social security number or other means that that's the right person.
So if you don't have that, it's safe to say you're not going to get any money owed.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily, but it is much easier to collect on a garnishment when we send it over to, like, if they work at Pizza Hut or whatever, we send it to Pizza Hut. It's a lot easier to get them to collect and take out their paycheck if you have a social security number. So on their renting application, I'd always ask for their social security number, definitely.
Okay.
And Angela,
And it helps you when you're looking up their background check.
Right.
So just tell them that you need it for their background check. And in reality, and then also another thing, if they ever pay you with a check, make a copy of that check. Because then when you go to freeze their bank account to get their money, to see if they have any money. Then you have their bank account number, where they bank, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can mail in that eviction form too. You don't have to physically go to the court. You can mail that in.
Oh, excellent.
And I think
5-minute drive.
I think the form may be on the Supreme Court's webpage.
Hey, Brett, this is John. I wanted to mention one thing. I've noticed the link for that seems to, at least on, and I've looked at it a couple different times. I thought it was just a freak thing, but for the wrongful occupation, the link is invalid. That may be something if it is on the website.
I can definitely get that one fixed if it's missed.
Yes, please.
But for our members, I have scanned that into a file and put it on the Landlord Association page.
Oh, nice.
You can go to the Landlord Association page and print off a copy of that form.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Angie, was that all the questions
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to, Angie's iPhone, I think I just unmuted you. If you want to ask your next question for Brett.
Thank you, John. Yes, I have a question. I'm looking into the crystal ball that we don't have for our evictions coming up, Brent. I'm like Jennifer. I love it that you're fair to all parties. I like to be fair to all my parties with West Virginia Rentals. And when I'm there evicting, I can see, we listen to their stories. I'll try to work things out with them. And try to avoid the eviction altogether. But what I'm wondering or suggesting is when these evictions start in June, if we're going to have a lot of people that are going to be lying, telling that I didn't get my didn't get my unemployment, my stimulus check never showed up. Is it possible that the magistrates will have the resources to immediately access to see if that in fact is a true statement? Because that's what I'm going to have a problem with. I know for a fact these folks are getting what they're, I see it all around me, and I've got a handful already on the books to go, and a handful more where they're just simply taking advantage of the situation.
Well, I don't know how everybody does, and you guys, a lot of you have been in front of me. What I do a lot of times is if somebody says it's Monday and they're getting evicted, I'll go ahead and evict them. And then I'll just tell the landlord, if you want to let them stay, if they pay you on Friday, y'all can work it out. So then you don't have to.
That works sometimes.
Yeah,
but I was just hoping that
I'll go ahead and put in the eviction if they have to be out by Friday or something. And then because they'll say, hey, I get paid on Friday and I'm going to pay them. And I'll say, okay, guys, we'll give you till Friday. If they don't have the money, then the landlord can go ahead and put them on out. And then nobody will have to come back.
Yeah, and that does work out pretty well. But I'm just really concerned about they're going to just say all this stuff that's not true, and it'll just push it further when it's really not necessary.
Well, personally,
resources of being able to look it up would be great.
I'm personally probably just going to go ahead, and if they haven't paid you, I'm going to go ahead and evict them. And then if they get their money later and y'all want to work something out, that'll be between you all.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, that's how I do things. I mean,
I'd like to think they all will.
I understand both sides, but you guys are trying to run a business. Well, I mean, I had a renter, and I feel for you guys.
We wish all magistrates had renters, Brett.
No.
And hopefully by June 1st, everything will be worked out with the unemployment and all the backlog and everything.
Well, some people, when they get their check, they're still not going to pay you guys. You all know that.
Yeah.
People tell you same thing happens every year with the tax return. Everybody says, I'll pay you when I get my tax return. And then they get their tax return, they're driving a new car down the road. Y'all don't get your money. I mean, I hear that every year. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it sure is.
Hey guys, make sure you raise your, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Make sure you raise your hand if you want to ask a question next, so I can unmute you and get you in line.
Brent, while we're waiting for the next question, do you want to explain to them, because I didn't understand this and ask you, so I know a lot of people don't understand it. Can you run them through how the magistrate races are now that each of them gets their separate?
Yeah, I'll go over that.
Yeah.
It used to be in West Virginia, everybody filed for magistrate. The top 10 or the top however many seats there are in your county was who got it. For instance, in in Kanawha County, we have 10 magistrates. So used to 25, 30 people would run. The top 10 vote getters got the job. So I know in some counties there's 5 magistrates or 2 magistrates. So whatever it is, the top number got the job. They decided to separate that and make it nonpartisan. So now there's no D or Rs beside anybody's name that's on the ballot. And there's 10 magistrates in Kanawha County. And if you wanted to run for a magistrate seat, you would have to pick which magistrate you wanted to go against. So they're one-on-one races now. So when you guys see these 20 or 30 magistrate signs out there, they're not all run against each other no more. They're all one-on-one races. Or they could be, if somebody's already got somebody run against them, 2 or 3 people could file against one magistrate. So it's whoever wants to file against that magistrate. In my case, I ruled against the lady that filed against me, and she got mad and ran against me. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on. So this time, I think 6 of the magistrates had people run against in Kanawha County, and 4 did not. And I'll go over who's run against 2. Again, I'm Brent Hall, and Tressie Cabell Profit is who's run against me. All right. Then there's Gary Sheff in Kanawha County, and Harry Carpenter is running against him. So it's Gary Sheff and Harry Carpenter. And then there's Hollis Lewis. He's one of our newest magistrates too. Ward Harshberger is trying to get back in, and he's run against Hollis Lewis. Okay. Then there's Rusty Casto is the current magistrate. Todd Chevalier is running against him. And then Jess Bales is the current magistrate. Mike Farrell is running against him. And Mike Farrell, that you've heard that name because it's a car dealership. It's not that Mike Farrell. It's a different Mike Farrell. Okay. And then Jack Polly is the other one that has somebody run against him. And Harry Brunner is running against Jack Polly. And then we have the 4 magistrates that no one ran against. Tracy Carper Strickland will be back. Mike Sisson will be back. Joe Shelton will be back. And Pete Lopez will be back. No one ran against any of those 4.
And somebody just asked on here what district they're in.
Okay, that's a good question. You see all these districts? That don't mean crap. It don't mean nothing. They're all, if you're in Kanawha County, you vote for all of them. You vote for all those races. There's no geographic disparity or different races. How it works is when they decided to do this a few years ago, they just drew numbers. They said, Brent, you're in Division 3, or Pete Lopez, you're in 1, you're in 2, you're in 3. They just gave us all numbers. The numbers mean nothing at all. They're just individual seats. You got to think of it as. So instead of being districts or they call them divisions, they're not geographic. They could all be from St. Albans. They could all be from Charleston. All the magistrates could be from Bell. I mean, that has no relevance to it at all.
So Cheryl, basically, they took every current magistrate, gave them division 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So all the current ones get their own division, and then anybody that wants to run has to pick one of them to run against.
Okay. Is there any more questions about that? I hope I was clear.
John, you don't have to say the magistrate specifically, but John, do you want to tell them about some issues that you had with the magistrate not awarding you late fees and not awarding you court costs?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to have y'all tell me any problems y'all are having with the magistrates, so we can, if they're not following the law, so we can address it.
I don't know if this was actually Hollis Lewis. I don't know if this was where he's new, but we had an issue where we evicted a lady, and she paid at court that day, and and he basically told us that since she's paying that she can stay. she didn't need to pay court costs. She didn't need to pay late fees. And unfortunately, that just turned into the following month us having to evict her again because it almost created a empowerment to her to not pay. As long as she paid when she wanted to pay, I guess, mentality. But
So she did pay, she just didn't pay the court cost. He didn't tack the court costs on.
or the late fees. And
Okay.
yeah. So basically just created a circumstance where we ended up having to evict her the following month because she did the same thing. So,
Well, you know, it's the same people we see all the time. They pay 1 month's rent, they stay at somebody's place, then they stay there a couple months, y'all get them out, and then they go to somebody else. And it's the same. And it's, you know, guys, it's the same people that I have in evictions, that I have in my criminal cases, that I have in my civil cases that are being sued. It's all the same people I see in magistrate court all the time.
and I guess that is the discretion of the magistrate, I assume, right? Is there a clear cut? I mean, that's just purely a discretionary thing that you guys have the ability to do that when circumstances.
What's that?
Basically, when you decide the case, you can, there's nothing really clear cut that you have to give late fees or you have to give. It's purely a decision that
the magistrate just is supposed to do what he thinks fair and right. And then if either any side's not happy, everybody has the right to appeal, as you know.
Yep.
So, but by the time you put in the appeals and the time, it's hardly worth $100 to fight over. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean,
sometimes you cut your losses.
Cut your losses. I mean, but yeah, I mean, that's something you should ask Hollis about. I mean, when you're getting a loan sometime or something.
Yeah.
So,
and I like to give some people the benefit of the doubt that especially when you're new, you come in with great aspirations about making changes, and you then start seeing the same people over and over, and it kind of maybe sets in that, well, maybe that wasn't the best course of action. Yes.
I'm definitely not as sympathetic to people as I used to be. I'll tell you that. Unfortunately.
That's one reason that I think we need to be real careful in these magistrate races, because as Brett and I discussed the other day, when new magistrates come in, they don't realize how much people are taking advantage of the system. And so they tend to believe the stories that tenants tell them and they let them get away with more because they just don't realize that these people are coming back again and again and again. So we need to be real careful because the ones that are in, we know, are they fair or are they not fair? If they're fair, let's leave them there. If they're not fair, let's get somebody against them. But the ones that are being fair, it's real scary to let a new one in because you don't know how the new one's going to roll. And the new one might be the best person ever. And like, they're super nice guy, girl, they're super nice. I don't care how nice they are they going to rule fairly? So we got to really, really be careful.
Every magistrate's very different and handles things different and does things different. So I think you guys need to decide who you like and stick with them and get rid of them, I guess.
Yeah. Angie, it looked like you had another question, so we'll unmute you and let you go ahead and ask your other question.
Okay, thanks, John. Yes, Brent, you asked what problems we have. The problem I have saw over the years.
Kanawha County?
Pardon me?
Are you in Kanawha County?
Yes, West Virginia Rentals. The problem that I have, I'm there all the time, is I always attach my copy of my lease to the order when I file the eviction, so it's there in front of the judge. And when the judge rules against, it's in writing. It's between the two parties. We have a contract. Let's use the late fees as an example. If the late fee is $10 a day for 10 days or up to a certain amount, and they have agreed to it, I don't understand why a judge will not follow the terms of the agreement. I'll say, well, it's right there, both signatures. They agreed not to smoke in their unit. They smoked in their unit. I want them out, but they paid the rent. But they smoked in the unit. Look at our agreement. I just like the magistrate to follow the terms of the contract if that's this issue at hand. And I'm seeing that they're not even reading or looking at it or caring. And I think that they need to understand the contract law. You know, if there's two signatures, there's an agreement there. And if one broke, then it should be an eviction, and it should be on the party of against the party who broke the agreement. And that I just see it happening all the time in Putnam County too. One lady told me, I can't remember the judge's name, but she said Well, $10 a day up to $150 a month is ridiculous. You're not getting that. And I said, well, it's page 1, paragraph 7 right there. She's and I
Angie,
just have a problem with that.
to look into that because I was thinking that there's somewhere in the code where you can only set a flat fee. Like it can only be up to so much. I need to look that so it doesn't get excessive like that. I mean, because that may not be fair if you guys agree to, they don't read the contract, they put in $50 a day or something. I would ever.
Well, that's called usury, and yes, there is a law against that. But our fees that we're charging are very normal and common.
Okay. All right.
And but that was just an example. The smoking is a big thing. If they've agreed and they've signed the agreement, and it says if you're caught smoking in this non-smoking unit or anyone in your household, then there's an immediate $500 fine. And then we go to court and we don't get that. But it was agreed to. It needs, I think the terms of, I'm a real estate broker too, so I'm really important. The details of the contract is really important to me. And it should be the same way with the lease.
Okay.
That's the way I feel.
I don't think a lot of magistrates would realize what it takes to get the smell of smoke out of an apartment. You're having to clean carpets, you're having to paint with Kills paint and then regular paint to seal that smell in. So I think most magistrates don't realize what it takes.
On average, about $1,300 per unit every time.
Well,
Mhm.
so we have look, Cheryl Austin had a question. I'll let you go ahead. I could read it for you if you need me to, Cheryl, but I'll let you go ahead and ask it since.
I have a mobile home park, and of course I have to give people 3 months notice for an eviction. I chose to have,
Not true necessarily.
no kidding.
Okay, you do have to give them 3 months to move their trailer. You do not have to give them 3 months to live there.
Live for free. Oh, that's good. Well, okay, that's good to know.
That's in the code, and if you want to reach, I haven't been able to get to my books or anything recently, but if you want to reach out to me, I'll show you where that is in the code.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to give 3 months to move the trailer, but they can be evicted before that.
Okay. Well, how about
3 months doesn't tie to the person. It only ties to how long you have to give them to move that trailer off your property.
Okay, but here's the other thing. So I filed an eviction, and I chose to have the process server serve the notice, and the magistrate court set the date, right? When I got there, the woman was a no-show, and I was told I'd have to continue it because they couldn't serve her, and I paid the money, and it was just like, we couldn't do it, so screw you. That's how I felt.
Well, sometimes they don't get people served.
Well,
You can always do it in the newspaper if people are avoiding. It takes time.
oh, okay, good to know.
After they try to serve them, I think it's once or twice. I'd have to look into that too. Then you're allowed to do it in the newspaper.
Wonder how long I have to put it in the paper.
It takes time, but I mean, it is what it is. If you're never gonna find them, put it in the paper and get it moving. Again, cut your losses sometimes.
Yeah. Well, no, I need to do that for sure. How long do you think?
Yeah.
How long do you think it has to be advertised in the
I
newspaper?
think it has to be twice. I think 2
Where-
consecutive, maybe.
Where do I find that information? Because I know people who really just don't care.
Cheryl, if you go to the clerk's office, tell them that you've done sheriff service or personal service, whatever it is that you try to do. Go back to the magistrate clerk's office. They will give you the piece of paper that you take to the newspaper. They'll give you that, and it is.
They do order for you. They write it up how it's supposed to be in the paper and give it to you, and you take it and pay the newspaper.
Okay.
And then the newspaper will send you a copy after it's ran of what it looks like in the paper, and then you have to bring that to the magistrate court and turn it in, and then we know it's ran. Go ahead and proceed with the case.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, we had a question. I think Al raised his hand and had another question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, Al.
Okay. With respect to the issue of getting late fees and penalties, for you landlords, you might as well just waive that going into magistrate court. Your main thrust should be to get them out. Don't argue about $10 a day late fee. The magistrate's not going to listen to you. Say, Your Honor, I will waive all the late fees. I simply want possession of my property and get these people out. You're going to get more sympathy from the magistrate than arguing about $10 a day, and they're not going to probably give it to you anyway. Okay, my question is, I have been told from a connection in the clerk's office that you have to schedule an appointment to go into the judicial annex starting next week. Is that the case?
I did not hear that. I'll have to look into that.
Well, I was told you have to schedule an appointment to get into the clerk's office, magistrate clerk's office, to do any business.
Okay. Well, why don't you give him a call on Monday and ask him? I'm not sure.
I shall. So,
Give you the number.
thank you. If you don't know the answer, no problem. Thank you for appearing for us.
Yes, sir. Do you want the number for the clerk's office in Kanawha County?
I know it.
Oh, okay. I'd be glad to give it.
Hey, Brett, before we move on to the next question, this is kind of input, maybe a follow-up for you. One of the things that we have been working towards or would have in the past had access to was now that they've consolidated all the magistrate data. And I mention this now because this is one of the common tasks that we do as landlords is go to the magistrate clerk computers, look up backgrounds to know whether rent to someone, which ultimately, if we're doing our job, we don't clog up the court system with multiple evictions. You know, now that let me go back to the point. Now that they have consolidated all the data, they actually, they have exposed us before the ability to check the court records, the magistrate data through a website. And what we had been told by the Supreme Court was that they were looking at, they were going to create a user and they had a fee schedule, and we could pay for the access to be able to have either per record or unlimited. And we feel that that's very important now in particular, because that would solve a lot of these issues of us having to go to court and also cluttering up your court system when we possibly don't.
Hey, John, I don't know anything about that. I've heard what you have, that they're going to eventually do that, but they haven't I don't have access to it at my house either. They haven't made it remotely that I can get on it either.
They have the ability to do it. I mean, obviously, it would just be nice to get an update, or maybe if there's any possibility, because we as a landlord association would be happy to buy the unlimited.
Backlog. Go ahead and file your stuff Monday morning.
Let me mute this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brett. I apologize.
Get on my list and check into it. And again, if you want me to get these answers back to you guys, I'll be glad to come back to the next meeting. Or if Jennifer, I can relay them to Jennifer and she can get back with you guys on my answers either way.
Be wonderful either way. We appreciate your time. Rick Raines had a question, and we'll unmute you, Rick. And go ahead, Rick.
Hey, John. In response to Cheryl there, we was talking, I got a friend, and he and I serve each other's tenants all the time. And, you know, you don't have to pay the sheriff to serve your petitions. You can get one of your friends to do it. So my buddy, I just serve his and he serves mine. And, you know, we'll go wait for the person to come home, and then we'll go, you know, go up on the porch and say, here's your damn notice. Get the hell out, you know. Cheryl, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. You know this guy here sitting beside of me? That's my brother, Carl.
Hi, Carl. I haven't seen you forever.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Veterans assistance.
But I think to Rick's point, Cheryl, I was going to mention that. I just didn't get a chance. I self-serve, and it's wonderful because you're the people that you either like a maintenance worker or a worker or a friend, that they will spend the time necessary. What I have found with the court processing, they make 2 attempts, and they don't, unless you specifically tell them where to go and where they work and give them their cell phone number and they contact them. I've never had much luck with paying, you know, the court process or the sheriff's process servers to do it. So
I'm ready I've been told this is a good way to get things.
Excellent.
I got a few bucks.
Was that it, Rick? I was going to go to the next question unless you had something else.
No, I mean, that's all. Like Cheryl would want me to serve for or something. Maybe we could do something like that. You could serve one for me or something.
Yeah, where do you live?
I live in Dunbar.
Gotcha.
Are you close by?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The buddy, I like it.
Buddy system.
Good.
So I think Angie had another question. I'll let her, unless you guys had anything else. Angie, you had the next question.
Thanks. Yes, it's similar to that. I wanted to ask Brent what his take is on if it's a multi-unit building, if another tenant within the building can serve them,
I'll walk you out.
a different tenant in the same building or in the same, maybe across the way in a separate building, same structure, same
Right.
complex, because that is very successful. But I know Putnam County judge told me once that she awarded me. I won, but she asked me to come up after it was over, and she said I noticed that who signed it lives in the same address to a different apartment. And I said, yeah, I had them wait on them, and she said, well, next time don't do that. And I just thought that's a really good way because we have, we form good business relationships with a lot of our tenants, and that's very easy to get served when it's like that. So I was wondering what you thought.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a detached party. Somebody that doesn't have anything to do with it. So, I mean, if that person's been complaining about that person or something,
No.
Good idea.
Just happen to live there. There's 70 units, and they don't know them, but they serve them.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. I would
feel the same way.
I would probably let it go, but I don't
If you
know.
even noticed, they could even use a different address, but I guess I don't know what they could put there, but I was just wondering that because it is more successful for me to use a tenant.
I don't know if they're in the same building, if they're really detached. That's a tough one. I'm not sure.
Can you check on it?
Yeah, I'll look into that one too.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Brent's feeling like he's back in school, like we're giving him homework to do.
And I wanted to mention, I don't see any other questions, and I do want to offer this because I have myself and people that work for me went before Brett. Jennifer said extremely fair, both parties. I did want to offer Brett, and I think I sent you a message too, and I hope other landlords would be amenable. If there's any signage that you need in locations, please let me know or let Jennifer know, and we'll find a landlord with property there if there's a particular area you want to target or try to have more accessibility. I'm sure we can find you some real estate there.
I appreciate that, you all.
John, it's funny that you mentioned that because I actually did reach out to Brent and he put signs at my house.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you guys are in a well-traveled area, it's helpful.
Okay, is there anything else?
I have no more hands raised. So Jennifer, if you want to, and Brett, if you want to conclude it.
Brent, if you're busy and need to go, I've got other stuff eviction related, but it's not stuff we have that we need you to answer questions on. You're welcome to stay on.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into these couple things.
Okay.
I'm gonna look into putting this. These are what I got on my list. Putting some kind of notice in with the notices. I mean, some kind of notice about the masks in with the court notices. I'm gonna look into that. The link for the eviction form at the Supreme Court, we're gonna see if we can get that fixed for you guys. I'm gonna ask him at the Supreme Court when we can expect to get the home computer access so you guys can look up people's records and things online.
Awesome.
And then I am going to ask about the duplex, someone else in the duplex serving it, if that would be proper or not. Was there anything else anybody wanted me to try to find out for you?
I think you go ahead.
There was a check to see if there's a cap on late fees.
A cap on late fees, that's right.
Yeah. And also, when you're checking on the remote access, please explain to them that those of us who use software that does federal background checks, we're not getting the proper information of evictions and felonies because West Virginia is not reporting them. So that would be one way they could correct their problem. They're not putting them on those databases. So we're not we find out later we have a felon in our place because we didn't come there directly and look at your records because someone's not doing their uploading that information.
All right. But I'll check into it. And I'll either get it to Jennifer, or if Jennifer wants me to come back next time, I'll be glad to do that either way.
Okay.
All right. Off here, let you guys talk if there's nothing else.
Okay, we'll talk about you while you're gone.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Hey, thanks. Okay, if anybody wants to stay on here a little bit, we do have some clarity on the evictions on Section 8 tenants, which is bad news. If you have a Section 8 tenant, even though you're a private landlord and they've always told you it's your tenant, you cannot file eviction on them until July the 25th for non-payment of rent. If they're dealing drugs, if they're causing damages, all that, you can file eviction, but you cannot file eviction until July 25th for non-payment. Even if they're working, even if they're getting unemployment, even if they're just totally working the system, you still cannot. I'm kind of reading down. I've posted some of the stuff on the Facebook group, so I'm just going to kind of glance down at here. So you can't charge any late fees or accrue any charges or fees. And again, I'm only talking about Section 8 tenants here. If you get to July 25th and they haven't paid you, then yes, you do file eviction at that point. Let's see. All right. If you get to the end and you get to that July 25th and you file eviction, then they will lose their housing assistance. So I talked to Carmen Easter at Charleston Kanawha Housing, and she said for us to very much stress to our tenants that and tell them they cannot get behind and wait till then, because if we get eviction, they will lose their housing assistance. So that's kind of a good thing to hang over their head and really push them to pay if they can, if they're gonna lose their assistance. We can send reminder notices of late rent, but we cannot include late charges, and we cannot include a notice to vacate. And then it gets even worse. It says residents cannot be required to vacate for at least 30 days after the end of the moratorium. So the moratorium ends July the 24th. So we're looking at August 24th for getting Section 8 tenants out. If which Carmen was as disgusted by all this as I am. So she doesn't agree with it, but they have to follow the federal guidelines that came out. So definitely not.
Just to pause for a second, Jennifer, I just want to, since I'm not an attorney, you're not. If Al's on the phone, I'm gonna unmute him. I'm curious about Al's opinion as a retired lawyer, if what their thought process is on them telling us we can't evict a HUD tenant on a private contract, that even with the contract between us and HUD, nowhere does it cover these kind of circumstances.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, I don't know exactly why it is a problem. Maybe somebody's had a problem that we haven't had, but if they have lost their income, then, or have reduced their income, they can go to housing, and housing will increase the amount as of the day that they go and file. So, you know, I would have to go back and look at that contract to see, because we also have a contract with the Kanawha Charleston Housing. I mean, we've got a contract with our tenant, the lease, but we also have a long contract with Kanawha Charleston Housing. So let me go back and read that and see. You know, I think this is a circumstance that we've never had before because it's the virus. And so I don't know if there's going to be something in that contract that is going to address something similar to this. But Jennifer, have you had problems with this? Because you seem to be frustrated by it.
No, I have not. My tenants are paying. I'm good. The thing that really frustrated me about it is it's specific in the Q&A part of this moratorium that says that we cannot evict even if they're still working, they have income, and they just don't pay. That's what infuriated me about it. Is it's not an issue. You're exactly right. If they've lost their income, they go to HUD. HUD pays 100% of them. So that's not where the problem is. The thing that really, really made me angry is that it says if they're still working and still getting income and they don't pay us, we cannot evict them. So I have not had a problem, but I just think that's completely unfair.
But what I think I heard you say was, if they are doing, let's just say we have a tenant who is trying to abuse the system, and then on July 25th, we go ahead and file our wrongful, and you have to be out by August 30th. Then if they don't pay all of their back rent at that time, then they are going to lose their housing. Is that what Carmen is saying?
Yes.
Okay.
If we get the eviction, if we get an eviction judgment, they lose their housing.
Which we would if they didn't pay the rent. So I think that we can notify, let's just say I had a wayward tenant who was in that situation. I would write them a letter and say, and call them and say, okay, you are not paying your rent. And I understand that I'm restricted by the housing rules that I can't file an eviction until July 25th. However, you're going to owe it all at that time. And if you don't pay it, you will lose your housing certificate. So I think that's a pretty good club to hold over their head myself.
I agree. Maybe this is a technical point, but can they really stop us from filing eviction before July 24th? Is that something you would just have to review?
Yeah, I'm going to look and see where they've got the authority. I understand we all got that email, but where in the contract does it say that they have the authority to actually dictate to us regarding evictions? So I'll make my note like Brent Hall did. I'll put myself some homework down here, but I'll go back and pull one of my HUD contracts and look and see what it says, because, it's long. We haven't read one in a long time because they're so long. And we've been doing it so long, we've been working with HUD for so long. And so far, as I say, we haven't had that problem. And they don't want to lose their housing certificate unless they just are going to lose it anyway. So for some other reason. So I think that's a pretty good club to hold over their head. And
I don't have any issues either. I hear that it just infuriates me to tell me that they can dictate a new contract term that I'm not aware that I've agreed to.
Right. Well, let's see what we've agreed, because like I say, there's a lot of small print in that contract with Kanawha Charleston Housing. So, I don't think they'll send the federal authorities after us, if we do send an eviction. But once we get to court, apparently it won't do us any good, let's say, because the tenant will make that argument. Well, they're not allowed to evict me until, August 30th or whatever the last date will be. So they could use that in their defense. Let's put it that way, especially if they go to legal aid. So.
Thank you, Tori.
I'll see what I can find, Jennifer and John.
Hey, Angela, you had a question. Sorry, Jennifer, to stop your train of thought there, but Angela was asking a question. Or do you want to finish your thoughts and then we'll go open it up to people?
No.
I think
If Angela had a question, go ahead.
It was actually about this HUD in Section 8. I'm new to this, again, in West Virginia. I thought that Section 8 tenants were paid directly to the landlord. Is that not true?
portions of their.
Just a portion? Oh, okay. I'm not. Am I still on? No.
You are, but I didn't know.
Am I still on? Yeah, just a portion. I mean, we do have some tenants, Angela, that the HUD pays the entire rent. but where there are also tenants that based on their income, HUD pays a portion and the tenant pays a portion. So that's what we're referring to. If they don't pay their portion, then, you know, we would normally notify housing and then notify the tenant that, you know, we're evicting you because you're not paying your portion. So that's what we're saying. If they lose their job, or if it's a diminished amount, they can go to housing and housing will increase and possibly pay 100%. But in Jennifer's example, it was a tenant who was still working and probably, or even got unemployment plus 600 a week, you know, and they can afford to pay their portion, but they're not doing it. So, but yet it's nice when you, even though, you know, I like for tenants to work, but it's easier when you do get 100% of your payment from HUD. You don't have to, you know, fuss with the tenant.
Is it Section 8 something recommended that landlords do? Because I'd never considered it, but if it's something that's worth considering, I might look into accepting Section 8 tenants.
I think you'll hear different opinions. I've had great luck with it, and I keep hearing it's a great club. You know, the tenant has an incentive to follow your rules, because they do typically get some form. If it's a $700 rent, you know, maybe HUD's paying $350, $450. There is a incentive for them to follow those rules. And with having kind of housing as that third party person, it really, if they pay the rent that you get, that you request on the open market, loses their job, I will pay 100% of the rent plus give them a utility check. So it's kind of like a backstop. So I see it as a benefit. I mean, you get to pick that tenant, you get to do everything as any other tenant. You just have to follow their HUD's rules, in terms of inspection and the types of things that they require in order to obtain the money. So it's kind of a give and take.
How do you go about accepting it? Do I have to apply for that, or do I just, if a tenant comes in and says—
Tenant comes in, they say they're on Section 8, you make sure that their voucher covers the rent that you're requesting. You fill out the paperwork. HUD schedules an appointment, does an initial inspection of your unit. They pass it, you hand the keys, and then that contract proceeds. So it's sometimes a straightforward process. Each county's different, but your county will be different than my experience with Kanawha. So
I need to add something to that, because am I still on?
Yeah, go ahead. You're
okay. Just quickly, I want to add, let's just say you want to rent your unit for $700 a month. HUD has a formula that they will feed into their computer with the tenant's income in it, and also the factors about your unit. For example, do you have a dishwasher? Do you have washer dryer hookup? There are all kinds of different things that will make your rent higher. But what can happen is, based on the tenant's income, they may come to you and say, well, we know you want $700, but we are only willing to pay $650. And then you have the option of whether or not to accept the $650, or you can say to whoever calls you from housing, no, I'm not willing to accept that. I really need $700 for this unit. So there is you may not get what you ask for. However, they do pay well. HUD pays well. But if the tenant's income is low based on their expenses, their other children, you know, how many children they have, et cetera, they may come back and tell you they can't pay the amount that you requested. But then it's up to you to decide whether or not to accept the lower amount or not.
So you can refuse.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You pick them the same way you pick other tenants. Okay. So it just so happens they get subsidized housing.
Okay.
And Angela, you don't have to do anything in advance. If they have Section 8, and they'll ask a lot of times, is the house HUD approved? There's no such thing as a HUD approved house. It's a HUD approved tenant who gets the house inspected, and then it becomes a HUD approved house.
Okay, good to know.
So they will bring you the paperwork. So you don't do anything in advance. They bring you the paperwork. You'll fill the paperwork out and get it back to housing. So it's an easy process.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we're back to me. I have put a letter on the Facebook group, and it's a letter that an organization called Our Future West Virginia has drafted. And I put it on the Facebook page asking for your all's feedback. They're asking for us to sign this in addition to some other organizations. I don't particularly love it myself, but I'll go with whatever the group wants to do. So if you guys would go to the Facebook group and look this over and put some feedback on Facebook, then we'll kind of go from there and see what we want to do on that. But the big thing I wanted to get to, if we didn't have any other questions right now, was kind of our criteria for selecting magistrates and who's running against who and who we like and who we don't like and all that. So I've also posted this on the Facebook group, but magistrates, we really need to be looking at magistrates based on their record, not on whether they're a fun person to be around. So, you know, my kind of list of criteria that I came up with is, first of all, do they know landlord-tenant law? Because most of them don't. Is if they're a current magistrate, are they fair to both parties? Has the magistrate accepted appeals after the 20-day appeal period? Does the magistrate allow tenants to appeal possession to circuit court, even though the law prohibits it? And we do have a little note there that Brent had said the magistrates are being told by the circuit court judges that they must sign all appeals, and that the circuit court gets to determine if they're accepted or not. So they're kind of being forced. How many days does the magistrate typically give the tenant to vacate, and is that excessive? What's the longest the magistrate has ever given a tenant to vacate? Does the magistrate award late fees to landlords or tell tenants they don't have to pay them? Does the magistrate award court filing fees and fees for serving papers to the landlord if they get judgment? So yeah, that was kind of my criteria. And then we have 6 races. And again, we all in the entire state, or sorry, take that back, in the entire county. So if you're not Kanawha County, you can just like tune me out now. But in Kanawha County, we have 6 races going on right now. So I'll kind of go through them one by one, and you guys tell me on each of these races, love them, hate them. So the first one is Todd Chevalier against Rusty Casto. Do you guys have any thoughts on either one of them?
Well, the only thing I can mention, and guys, I'll unmute everybody. I'll try this. We do have 21 participants, so I'll just let you, but please mute yourself if it's, or unmute yourself to talk if you can, or mute yourself back if there's a lot of background noise. But one thing I wanted to mention, at least from the Casto, the only experience I've had is he seems to always tell the tenant, well, you can appeal this if you're not, and I know that they can, but that's always he always to tell them they can appeal it to circuit if they're not happy. But I'm going to unmute everybody, try this, see if this works. Otherwise, we'll have to go back to the raising hands to.
John, is Rusty the incumbent and then Todd is the challenger?
Jennifer, yes, I believe that is the
Todd,
case.
he's the challenger. Okay, so we don't really know anything about him.
He would be new to us.
Okay.
But since I did mention about Casto, he did rule in my favor, though. So he did follow the letter of the law. And I do believe he knew the people, too, because he's from Nitro. I think he used to be a mayor. So I will say that, at least from what you know, for what you're getting, if you don't have any other input, he did rule the landlord's favor fairly.
So nobody's got any other thoughts on Todd Chevalier versus Rusty Casto?
I don't know Todd, Jennifer, but I know Rusty. I've been before him many times, and he's a fairly new magistrate, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yes.
But yeah, he would. I win with him too, but he does me the same way. But he's not the only one. They all do it. Every time, I can't stand that either. When they say, "Oh, but by the way, you can appeal this if you don't like it," I'm like, that's in the writing. Don't encourage it, and there you are, you get appealed. So I don't like that either.
Jennifer, just send us the list from the magistrate candidate, please.
It's this whole list is on our Facebook group. So there's the list of all the races, and I'll post it on the Facebook group.
Deal.
All right, the next one is Brent, who we just talked to, against Tressie Prophet Cabell. He did tell me privately, and then he told you guys that he had ruled against her in a case, and then she decided to run against him. I have no idea what that case had to do with. But what I do know is that we've all found Brent to be very fair. So I'm not willing myself to risk it on somebody else, no matter what I think. When we know we got somebody in there that's fair. The only thing that I had a negative feeling on her was I saw a sign at the Cross Lanes exit, and it was all about how she wants to get people into drug rehab. And my fear is that she's going to feel sorry for people that are on drugs because, you know, they have a medical issue. And that scared me to death on her.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys have thoughts on Tressie versus Brent?
Brent's been great. I mean, I'm not just saying that. He really has been fair. I mean, he's never.
Yeah.
On the evictions, and I had one case where somebody came after me for a security deposit.
Yeah, Brent's the best choice.
Okay, we'll stick with Brent on that one then. The next is Jack Polly versus Harry Bruner Jr. Any thoughts there?
Does anybody know anything about Bruner? I would like to know, because Jack Polly, oh my goodness. I never know what he's going to do. And
He does what his clerk tells him to.
yeah, I mean, I just think he's too old. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm getting old too. And Al's old. But he's been in there a long time. And I think he's unpredictable. So I don't know. I'd love to vote for the other person if I knew something about them.
I would kind of concur. I've had some mixed rulings. It tends to, in my opinion, tends to be more tenant friendly than landlord friendly. So.
Yeah, I agree. And he's grouchy. He's almost acts like he's mad at you because you're there. You know. I think it's time for him to retire, but.
Does anybody know anything about Bruner? Because we don't want to get him out and get somebody worse in.
I know. So yeah, sometimes it's who you know the beast, but.
No, but we can look into it. We could stalk him on Facebook.
Yeah, let's definitely check into them then. Okay, the next one is Jess Bales versus Mike Farrell. Thoughts on those two?
I recently had that outcome with the meth cooking with Jess Bells, and he was wonderful. I was on the phone with him as I was putting them out, and he did me he told me, set them out, Angie. What are they going to do? Just set them out. The cops are going to help you. Just do it. And he said he did appeal it, but I did not approve the appeal. So he should set him out. And I love him for that.
Yeah, I like that too.
That's interesting that you said that he didn't approve the appeal, because we were told that the circuit courts were telling the magistrates they had to sign all appeals. So that's great. If he's not, that's great.
Yeah, that didn't make sense. Very much contradicted what they were saying, but he said he did not approve it. Oh, sorry.
Anybody else have any knowledge of Jess Bales versus Mike Farrell? Okay, now for the big one. Hollis Lewis, we've had some trouble with, against Ward Harshbarger, which is a previous magistrate. Y'all's thoughts on those two?
I think I share my experience. I would probably, if that came to choose, I would choose Ward versus Lewis.
Okay.
I got taken to the cleaners with Hollis Lewis. the tenants moved into my house and agreed to do some work, which I wouldn't normally accept, but I had no handyman at the time, and in exchange for me lowering the rent a little bit, they ended up not paying any rent after the first month for at least 3 months. And the tenant came in and was able to speak first and talk 90 miles an hour for about 15 or 20 minutes. And he had already bought her story, and I didn't, basically I had to just say, just don't give me any money. Just ask her to vacate. And then after they left, they tore light fixtures and tore faucets and everything out of the place. And I didn't get anything, and they got to stay an extra month, I think. And, so so he was not very fair.
My sister in law, they went taking that medicine yesterday. They had my birthday wrong.
Well, it's okay. I've already paid for it.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any issues previously with Ward Harshbarger from when he was a magistrate previously?
This is very Arce. I love Harshbarger.
Okay.
For me, was always the best magistrate for years and years.
And he used
Why
to
did
be
he leave?
the lead, wasn't it? Wasn't he the chief magistrate for a period of time? I've had some cases. I've never had any negative experiences with him. I don't, whether that's good or bad, but he has been there a while. Right.
Okay. The last one is Gary Sheff versus Harry Carpenter. Thoughts on either one of them?
Okay. Chef versus, and it's Carpenter?
Yeah, Harry Carpenter.
We had Carpenter come before us and talk a little bit. He was actually showed up to one of our quarterly or one of our monthly meetings right before the pandemic. I think our last meeting actually. He gave us time. He talked about his background in the process server, in the sheriff's department. Seemed very pro landlord. I don't know much about Chef, but Carpenter, I like him. Good or bad. I obviously no real experience, but he seemed very much understanding of the people. He also was in charge or is currently in charge of home confinement. So good or bad. I don't know if anybody has any positive or negative things. That's the only thing I can really share when it comes to Carpenter.
Well, that's good stuff, because all of that information and having that kind of knowledge is really to our advantage.
I know Cheryl Austin. Cheryl Austin knows him personally. I think she's not on here anymore.
Yeah, and I liked part of the things he discussed. I know a lot of you guys weren't there at our in-person meeting, but a lot of the stuff he talked about was, being in the home confinement area. And it was kind of the same thing that Brett touched on. You kind of start to see the same people in the civil, that's in the criminal, so it's nice to have somebody that is in that system and it is kind of not going in it with the blinders on or trying to be a community, motivator or community supportive type person versus just following the law, so.
Which one of them is currently in?
I think Chef, because I just walked past his sign today and it said, keep Chef magistrate.
Yeah, I haven't had any experience in front of him. Somebody else will have to speak.
Yeah.
Has anybody been in front of him?
Nope.
Hello, this is Rick. You hear me?
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
Talk real loud. I can barely hear you.
I can't hear you, Rick, but.
I've known Gary for like 25, 30 years. He's a good, fair guy. I mean, he's new in this. He was appointed when another magistrate had to leave here not too long ago. But like I said, I've known Gary for a long time. He's a real good guy. He's real fair. I was talking to him. He come down to the house, and we put up a sign in my yard and a couple of my rentals for him. And I didn't for him, but like I say, we had a little talk, and he said, about how he did everything. He just looked at me and said, well, Rick, I'm not going to really favor anybody. I'm going to be as fair as I can on either side. So, I like what I heard there. And, I'm like you guys. I don't want anybody to, if I haven't fulfilled my part of the contract, for some reason, I feel that they're in the right, but, if they're not paying me, then that's something else. But,
Yeah, I'm not sure your computer, we can't hear you, just barely like a whisper.
I don't know what's wrong. I've been having trouble with my internet connection. Can you hear me better now?
Yes. I hear it clear, Jennifer. I'll just summarize what you said. Rick's known Gary Shep for a long time. He talked to him. He felt like he would be a fair person. He had also liked him enough to allow some signs in the yard. One thing I will mention, I think we did try to reach out to Gary. Jennifer did. I thought he was the one you were telling me, and we tried to get him to come and talk to us, but we weren't successful.
We never did get that. We never got that date set up, John. And so he said he would come to the meeting next month or something. He just didn't know his new schedule or anything. So he was willing to come.
Okay. So that's the only thing I know to add. Thank you, Rick.
No problem.
Okay. And the only other thing, if you weren't on the, before the call, we were talking for a minute, and one of the members had mentioned with the PPP loans, if you're a Schedule E, no PPE loan for you.
Unless you have payroll. You can still, unless you have payroll. That's the key for a lot of this is the payroll. And how you, and whether you're a Schedule C versus, you may have a Schedule E, that's your net income. You may feed some money into your Schedule C that would kick you into being able to qualify for a PPP.
That's what happened to me.
Really a Schedule E with no employees, no, you would not qualify. But you do qualify for the economic injury. And that is the slow process. I don't know if you can still apply for it, but they will base that on your income. And they're very favorable terms, 30-year loans, 3.75 interest rate, and they determine the amount based on the income and things that you put out in the paperwork or the website. And that's directly through the SBA.gov. And I would go ahead.
Has anyone gotten any information back? Everybody got their $1,000 per employee, but I don't know if
I got responses back on the 3 companies that I applied for it under. So,
did they give you amounts and all that?
yes.
Huh. Okay, I still have not received anything.
Well, I haven't the last time I checked. Now, I haven't checked in about a week, but.
I got 3 emails this morning, one at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and 7 a.m. So.
Oh, so just today you got it.
Everything is electronic. You fill it out, you do identity verification, you pick the amount, and they give you the terms. So.
Did they give you a fixed amount of money?
Yeah, it was very fair. So.
That's not the way it happened for me. I went through Rocky Young at Poca Valley Bank, and I filled out their application online, and he texted me back, and he said I had to send him my 941s and the quarterlies and the federal annual, and he texted me back and told me what I qualified for, and within 3 days he funded the money.
You're talking about the PPE, and we're talking about the EIDL. I think we're talking about 2 different loans.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the 2 we qualify for, if you don't qualify for the PPP because you don't have any W-2 employees, if you apply, I don't know if you can still apply for the EDIL, which is what you would go to the SBA.gov website. But everyone that applied for that, at least minimum got $1,000. And if you had employees, W-2 employees, you got $1,000 for each W-2 employee. And that was considered in advance. So.
Yeah, I got that EIDL, John. I got it about 3 weeks ago. And they said that the reason I couldn't get the PPE is because I didn't have any employees. But they said, and this is what we might want to think about in the future, I've got a corporation. If I had paid myself through that corporation, then I would have been eligible for something. So when I talk to my accountant this next week, I'm going to set something up like that.
Well, keep in mind that that's a very, be careful about that, because once you start paying yourself, you start getting self-employment tax to that money. So you've got to really think about that, because it's not, don't make a financial decision based on what money they're giving you now, because.
Well, that's true, but I wanted to just talk
Right.
to him about it. Right.
Net owners, the draws are always the best for us.
Yeah.
My opinion. Sorry, Rick.
Right.
What I found interesting about the PPP versus the disaster is that when they calculated the PPP, because I do pay myself a W-2, because I do, if I don't, I'm in trouble. So I am that only person, and they actually took the average monthly income that I made last year, or 2018, and times it by 2.5 for the PPP, and added the disaster. So they said you couldn't have both. They do add that $1,000 for the EIDL.
Now, if you do, you still qualify for both. It's just that the money has to not be, like, if say you got $1,000 for the EIDL and you got money for the PPP, that $1,000 on the EIDL has to be used for a different purpose. They can't be the same purpose. So
Gotcha.
if it's payroll for one and it's mortgage interest on the other, fine. That as long as it's, if you get money, please put that in a separate checking account and be prepared to justify every single transaction, because if they come to audit you, you want to be able to justify where that money goes, because I have a feeling they're going to scrutinize anybody that gets this money, and you better make sure that you're spending it correctly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else, so it opened up to anything you guys want to talk about.
I checked in a little bit late. Did they say, do the courts open Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
And we need to determine, we're going to check, Al had gotten input that we may have to call ahead and schedule an appointment and not just something you show up for. So you may, before you make that trek down to the courthouse, you may want to make a phone call. Or once once someone determines if you have to do it, if you'll pass it on to me or Jennifer, we can just send a quick note to the entire group.
Okay. Yeah, Al's going to call them Monday. So, wait a minute. Today's Thursday, though, right? Well, he'll call tomorrow. Yeah, he'll call them tomorrow and find it. Well, they may not answer tomorrow. We may have to wait until Monday.
I heard something about the House was thinking about trying to get a law where landlords could not get back rent or something. Anybody heard anything about that? The federal government.
We kind of discussed on the Facebook group earlier today a House bill. I think it was 6800. I think
the HERO bill is what they called it.
Yeah, the HEROES Act. We kind of discussed that a little bit on the Facebook group today. They're looking at a 12-month eviction moratorium. I truly don't think that'll ever get through.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's just a wish list.
Yeah.
We hope.
Yeah. Yeah, the Senate probably wouldn't go for that.
No, I don't think so.
And John, did you get this? It just popped up on my screen kind of late into the meeting that it was recording. Did you end up getting it recording at the very beginning?
Yeah, it's been recording since.
It has.
So.
Okay. Then Tim, if you missed the beginning of the meeting, we're gonna post the recording to this.
Okay.
So you can go back and watch the beginning, because there's a lot of good information that Brent shared with us at the very beginning that you probably will want to go back and.
Okay, on the website.
Yeah, I'll put it up after the meeting's over. It's kind of a long process for me to download it, and after I download it, I have to upload it then to YouTube and wait for that to process, which takes quite a while, and then I post it to the Facebook site. So it'll probably be tomorrow before all that occurs.
Okay, on Facebook.
And if you log on to the website, there's a link that shows past Zoom meetings that you'll be able to click on. Like the past, we've got the SBA meeting, the PPP stuff. We've got those meetings and the Attorney General. I'm assuming we'll put the same link to the YouTube that Jennifer has. And one comment I want to make, I would really like to add more stuff to that website that's useful. I know one of the requests we had in the past meeting was a membership directory. We've added that. So if you log in, you'll be able to access a member directory. You can opt out of that. If you guys can click on, let me know that you don't want to be listed, but it's only members and only members that are paid can see that. If there's other things you'd like to see, I hope to have a link in the future for background checks that you'll be able to click on and submit information on the tenant and a background check. So there'll be things there, obviously discussions, things in the paid group. That our interaction, I think, will obviously continue. I think Jennifer's done a great job on that paid group. That there's a lot of value in that, with the experience and input that you guys are replying to. But the website, hopefully, it's more static, but hopefully we can make it more useful. If you have ideas, please send them to me or Jennifer. We'll see if we can add more things.
So, John, is that membership list on the website or the Facebook page?
The website, or if you'll log on to your website with the user credentials that are set up, and if you have any problems with that, I had in that last notification, you can actually reset your password. But if you log on to our website, there'll be extra links you can have access to, like the member directory and the past Zoom meetings that you'll be able to click on and go to. So
okay.
I have one question, John.
Yes.
Are we permitted? I don't know if we would be permitted to do that, but to have a list, or maybe you all already have this on your website. I'm a new member, but a list of everyone as we evict them, because us as a group, we could easily look at that list first.
People have asked that. What I've always been told, it opens you up to discriminatory practices, and it's not advisable. I don't know what Corey or someone maybe has input. That's what I've always been heard input when other people have mentioned it. But
because I think it would be great. I keep all of my evictions in Dropbox. We could have a shared Dropbox in the cloud of every eviction, so it would be a good source to look at as a reference when we have an application for a new tenant that's jumping around from landlord to landlord. If we're members only, so I think we could have a way around it. That's me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it exposes us to, to have a list like that. I do know, and I appreciate you, because I file eviction on people. And if you continue to do that, when I do a background check and I see that, I typically am not renting to them. If you
typically what? I missed that.
If you are filing evictions on these people, I'm checking their background when they're applying to me, and I'm not renting to them typically. So that, in my mind, is the best practice and the safest practice.
But it's public knowledge, and if it's just like posting public knowledge on a site, in my opinion. Right. And you welcome all landlords in the state of West Virginia to it. Since the state's not doing their job, I'm really irate about that. The state should be doing that, because my software does a federal background check, and I get Ohio evictions, I get Kentucky, Virginia. I don't get West Virginia, and I just think it'd be great if we had a source we could pull together.
And more important about even your background check, there are certain things that don't show up. But even if somebody's in the process, like if I start an eviction on someone and it hasn't completed, and then you will never see that in your background software until it's completed and finished and uploaded. And there is a one to the courthouse right now is the best, most accurate upload in West Virginia when it comes to magistrate data.
Yeah. I'd love to have remote access to that. That would be so great.
We've been working on it, but it's never, we haven't had much leadway. It is accessible, or has been in the past. It just never.
Yeah, I'd be willing to pay for that.
We were actually willing to pay a group rate through the organization, and then paid members would have access to it through the website. So we still hope that's a possibility down the road.
That would be good, because especially now we can't go to the courthouse, so, you know, we can't do any courthouse research. So that would be good.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of the prog for pushing Brett to open that up, because
Yeah.
we've been waiting for a while. And
Right.
don't let any bad pandemic create an opportunity maybe for us to get access to something that might take long or shorter time than.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna leave. My husband is putting dinner on the table, so. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate all your work in putting this together.
You're welcome.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree. Thank you.
I'll get back to you guys on the question. Okay, bye. Mhm.
Does anybody else have any issues or concerns or anything you want to bitch about?
I want to ride in Angela's airplane.
Oh.
Thanks.
All right, well, if nobody else has got anything, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll get this posted on the Facebook group and on the website tomorrow.
Okay, have a good weekend, people.
Thanks, Betty. Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate
I'm
it.
not,
Thanks, y'all. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
I'm not sure who said that about the airplane, but you're welcome to come for a flight. I'm right in Columbiana County.
That was Rick Raines, I think.
Yeah, you're welcome to come, Rick. As long as the weather cooperates. This weather's horrible.
Sounds like fun.
Bye, Dana.
Yeah.
Yeah.